I have zero doubt the stock will pass 1,000 US per share. When Optimus arrives on its stride and robotaxi is normal in most major city centers, there will be an enormous value in the company that I predict will be not immediately realized in the stock price, because Elon will already be talking about building the Dyson sphere or whatever the huge thing is that will really upset investors.
For many investors, it's hard for them to believe whenever they hear someone say that Tesla stock will one day be worth thousands of dollars per share. Even when Elon Musk himself says, as he did a few days ago, that robotaxi will make Tesla a $5 trillion company and humanoid bots will make it a $25 trillion company. Many just wave that away. Well, it does sound crazy at first, unless you start to think of Tesla not as a car company or a robotaxi company, but rather an innovation company. Today, we get to speak again with Joe Justice, an ex-employee at Tesla where he ran the Agile program division. He'll explain Tesla's actual magic is its speed of innovation, and that eventually Tesla could dominate many industries. He should know, previously he has worked with Bill Gates at Microsoft, the leadership team at Amazon, Toyota, and Mercedes-Benz Group. He's written a book called Scrum Master and founded Wikispeed. Thank you so much, Joe. I've been looking forward to catching up with you again. We've been doing this once a year for the last 2 years, so thank you so much. Welcome.
Herbert, long time no see. It is good to talk to you. This time coming to you from Japan, where my home is now. So Wikispeed started in Denver, Colorado in 2006 after getting inspired on a very brief trip to Hawaii and driving the road to Hana. Some of you have driven it. Some of you have seen YouTubes of it. Mm-hmm. I thought it was as beautiful a drive as people say and as YouTube makes it look. I hope some of you out there have done it already. And I wanted to make a car company that I thought wouldn't harm the environment. I wasn't so ambitious like Elon is to make a car company that actually improves the environment. I just wanted to not feel guilty enjoying the world's driving roads back in 2001 when I first drove it, I think. Then I founded Wikispeed in 2006 in Denver, Colorado, and then moved to Seattle, Washington, and set up a small factory. We made 14 cars and set 4 world records for agile hardware. And that is what got me to then consult to Amazon. I was working for Bill Gates when I was founding that. And then that is what got me to then work at Tesla. And now it's brought me to Japan. So Wikispeed is now the largest EV racing team, I think, in the world, definitely in Japan, I think worldwide, probably Asia, definitely Japan. We compete in the world's only all-electric EV Grand Prix series. Japan is really slow on adopting EVs, and yet strangely, they, I believe, have the only all-electric Grand Prix racing series in the world. And it goes to the premier tracks all around Tokyo. And the team that I now own and operate, Wikispeed, campaigns on those. And we just won, not with me driving. I'm not the worst. I placed second and third. Once I placed first. But with a much better driver than me. Our team, one of our team's cars won the last race at Tsukuba, the closest racetrack to Tokyo. And the bottles behind me are from our champagne importer sponsor, champagne importer Frey, in Switzerland. And so they're being shipped to our driver now, I hope. I was just working on that. Hopefully to congratulate them on the win at Scuba. That's what I've been up to. Now, Herbert, your investment portfolio is a lot wider than most. That's why you have the following you do. I'd like an update on you, if you don't mind, on the last year as you see it in stocks, investments, investment opportunities, and why you still have conviction and interest in Tesla like I do.
Yeah. Well, I interestingly enough, right, I was investing in Tesla since 2012, but it was actually a video of you in 2018, 19, like that I stumbled upon that really gave me and my brother a tremendous amount of conviction. You, somebody who worked at Tesla, was able to very articulately explain what makes Tesla very different. And that's what I want to revisit here, because 2 years ago, when I had you on the show, it was very well received by so many people. But I remember at the time, it was like the stock was, flat, going down, nothing happening. And here you are talking about how great the company is, but specifically its speed of innovation and how that will generate new businesses. And nobody believed you. Nobody believed that that's the case. And of course, now where we're at today, a lot of the things you said at that interview is coming true. I am a product manager by background. I've started 3 startups myself. And for me, what attracts me to companies that I invest in is the product and the business. It's simple as that. And I'm a long-term buy and hold if I believe in an innovation engine. So I did it first with Apple, very much revered Steve Jobs and the company. And then obviously Tesla. So that's why when I hear you talk, it resonates very clearly with me. So why don't you explain a bit, what you were saying back then, and then how you've seen it unfold in the last, year or two, and specifically now.
I'm interested how you didn't say leadership or charismatic leadership, and I actually agree with you. A lot
Yeah.
of people say the reason they think a company will succeed is because of its leader or its leadership. Look at the top. And I actually don't have that view. And it's interesting that that wasn't the first thing you said either.
Yeah. Let me explain my thinking about this, because obviously I'm in a startup world. I've thought about this a lot. And my answer to that would be there's 3 things that would make a business or product successful, right? It's market, it's the team, and then it's the products. And for me, market comes first. If you have the largest market you're going after and it's a true revolution, and you have a mediocre team, mediocre product, you'll still succeed and you'll still survive. But if you have a great team, then the team can change no matter whatever product you happen to have. But it starts first with market, then a team, and then whatever product it develops. And that's why I look at Tesla and I go, okay, they are going after the largest markets you can possibly think of. The largest you can think of. Labor is the single largest market in the world, right? Cars, energy, everything they do is like the top 5, 10 largest markets that are massively needed, growing like crazy. Then they have the best team, and he created an innovation engine. And then now you have millions, that's like tens and 20s of different products that will just pop out of nowhere, and then they will innovate. So yeah, sorry, this is an interview of you though. Please tell me more about your thinking.
So Elon says publicly and to the employees, pace of innovation is the only thing that matters in the long run. Now, for the folks who are watching here, probably with investment interest, the long run is a really useful part of that quotation for us. Elon definitely had many chances to maximize an exit. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever heard Elon say exit. Ever. Mm-hmm. Now, I did just say I don't think it's about the one top person. That's actually not how I get excited about a company or choose to invest in a company or choose to work in a company. However, keeping laser focused on a 10,000 year vision or further out is something the owners get to choose or not. And that is what Elon chooses. Now, I don't think it's the leader. I think it's that choice, being laser focused on a 10,000 year goal. And that is what reliably has made the Musk companies grow market share, because they're not interested in any analyst's thoughts on what happened in the last 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, or even guesses on the next year, next 10 years. They're thinking in 10,000 years, there won't be oil, definitely not to burn. And diesel, gasoline doesn't work on Mars or the moon. So what's the energy infrastructure? What's the product infrastructure? What's the communication infrastructure? What's the finance mechanism? And what even is the system of government and language that is useful in a multi-planetary civilization 30 years from now to 30 million years from now? And so they get to market early because they've made it. And interestingly, that does set records even now. So the Cybertruck is basically a prototype construction machine for Mars. Mm-hmm. That's what you get to drive. Now, interestingly, that's already the best-selling pickup on Earth, because when you're building or trying to iterate towards construction equipment for Mars, you come up with some very durable alloys. You come up with some very portable, collapsible origami-like construction processes that give you a factory density that's unusual. So when you're competing in a future game, the Musk companies have shown us you can clean house against the competitors you have now playing the present game or just trying to protect assets. And it looks the same with the Model Y. The Model Y was an early prototype of the Cybercab, and now it is one of the flavors of the Cybercab as of just a few weeks ago. And that has made it such a good medium to small SUV that it's the best-selling medium small SUV in the world, and actually now the best-selling car in the world. And this keeps happening. Neuralink is now the best available treatment for some types of neck injuries. So much so that it's aiming to be a brain augmenter for all humans. And it's not there yet, but you can see the aim, just like the Model Y, aiming to be the best cyber taxi prototype in the world, has become the best-selling car in the world. And the companies simply do this again and again and again. And for those of us who like evidence, Colossus, the AI compute cluster, has just been recognized. Sorry to date this video, but it's just been recognized by the CEO of NVIDIA as the fastest beyond supercompute AI supercluster that has ever been envisioned and rolled out by several years. So multiple orders of magnitude in speed difference. From the first rack rolling in to turned online has been cited at 19 days for the largest AI compute center on Earth. Nothing has come close to that by multiple orders of magnitude for something even near that size. This is beyond supercomputers. This is many, 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 many collections of networked supercomputers at a scale that has never happened before. And not only did it worked more quickly than the nearest small size competition by a very large margin. Because Musk isn't trying to make the biggest AI supercompute. He's not competing with Gemini or ChatGPT. Musk is trying to make the communication backbone and financial backbone, and as some of us are really seeing now, government, for the next 10,000 years. So he's trying to compete against, I don't want to get overly political, but whatever the nation state 10 years from now might be, and not worried about the current crop of AI competitors. But it's the speed of executing that vision that has made it relentlessly win again and again and again across every market they've entered, and that allows them to enter, as it really does look like, every market, which was our first conversation together. Me saying, here's a map of was it EBITDA, or I think it was total
Fortune
stock
500.
Yeah. And saying, here is where Elon has entered, and here's where Elon has said Elon will enter, and has now since then, and more, making it a very large percent. And then the idea of expanding that to the idea of labor, which is what you just started our conversation off with. We could take this every big direction, but to be concise at this point, the pace of execution of innovation, so it's looking 10,000 years out and then executing very quickly, is the only thing that matters in the long run. And the Musk companies, all of them, have done that more effectively than any company in the last, arguably, 4,000 years.
Yeah, I love the way you position that. There is that dichotomy. So most of us look at it based on, here's a company, here's the product that they've just released, here's the market they're competing against, here's the competitors, here's the value proposition and the advantage of that product against the competitors. And what you rightly reminded us is not to think of it that way, because that's not the way Elon thinks of it. He's thinking about the future of what he wants to accomplish, and then he backtracks from that. So a great example would be SpaceX, right? So I need a reusable rocket because I want to go to Mars. oh, how am I going to fund this? Oh, you know what? If I can create rockets, I might as well just, send up satellites. And if I have satellites, I can get these Starlinks, and maybe that's going to generate enough enough revenue to fund this process. It's almost like they have the bigger goal. And then because you have that goal, and I like the way you position it, the Model Y wasn't designed to be the best electric vehicle. It's designed to be the best cybercab, or it's the future of our autonomous vehicle. How do you get there? Well, it's got to be first electric. It's got to be very, it's really interesting because at the earnings call, I don't know the guy's name, but he spent 10 minutes talking about the software of the app and how a lot of the robotaxi app that's being developed that they've been using for a year for robotaxi, a lot of the features they've already been developing for years in your car that you can use, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, a new feature would come. Well, why did they add that feature? It was because it all adds up to this vision in the future. A few companies do it that way. They don't think that way. But the dichotomy is, if you have such a long vision of where you want to go, how does he then have the speed is so critical? Like every month, every day is a sense of urgency. How does he first implement that in the company? You work there, you develop the agile division, which is all about how to do things simpler and quicker, faster. Can you just explain like that dichotomy of longer vision, but then speed matters?
When you walk in to a Tesla, facility, and in 2020, when I was an employee, the only facilities were the factories.
All right.
So I think that's important. Now, there are now some Tesla facilities that are not factories, and I actually find that concerning, but their speed somehow has not degraded as much as I would have guessed. But please let me describe first my firsthand experience in 2020. When you walk into a Tesla factory, because there are only factories in 2020, there are no other facilities. When you walk into a Tesla facility at 4 a.m., an hour early before you start physically working at 5, all you see is a wall of numbers. Those numbers are the KPIs that run the company right now. They're things like, how many grams does a seat weigh that's being made today? And that's not a simulation. There's a robot that puts the seats in the cars, and as it does that, it weighs them. So in real time, right now, how much those seats weigh in grams, the real ones that are going in the cars. And then there's another number that says, how many seconds does it take to put a seat in the car? And there's another number that says, once that seat is plugged in, it goes through a piece of test software, because the seats have sensors to determine your position. They have airbags in the seats. Now they're heated and ventilated, etc. So there's electronics in the seat. When they're plugged in, how much electricity draw does that test software consume? Because it puts it through all the adjustments, it tests heating and cooling, it tests the position sensors. So you have these three numbers. There's some others too, but those are the top three, or they were last time I was able to see them. There's no manager saying, we have a 10-month plan to reduce the weight of the seats. There's no VP of engineering saying, here's our engineering strategy to make the seats a slightly different shape so they take less time to install. There's nothing, just those numbers. And it's your job as whoever walked in to walk up to where those seats are made, or any of the numbers. There's numbers for every module of the car. So for example, the seats, to walk up to, for example, the seats yourself at 5 a.m. and meet whoever else walked up there that day. There's no team plan. There's no assignment. You just walk up. And then in the next 12 hours before 5 p.m., have a seat in production that is a gram lighter. That's your job. And no one needs to tell you that's your job. It's like a video game. You sit down in front of most video games, or pull out your phone. There's some sounds that tell you did something that the game thought was good, or that the game thought was less good. Or sometimes there's a score, or sometimes the music changes. Somehow the game tries to communicate to you good or not good. Being an employee in Tesla in 2020 was exactly the same. I didn't need a human to come tell me on the game I was playing, you did a good job, or this is what you need to do. The displays in the factory would communicate, here's what's important right now, just by these numbers. And you did a good job if the seats in production are a gram lighter. So to do that, of course, we had AI assistants. So we would work in groups with whoever showed up. We'd typically then subdivide into 3, 4, or 5 people. And we would ask AIs, and in 2020, they were a lot simpler than I assume they are now, questions about how do I, for example, make this seat weigh a gram less today? And we would all reprogram the robots in production, talk to suppliers, make hand prototypes. And 12 hours is enough time that you can make a lot of things by hand to validate them. And then if something looks like it might work, reprogram some of the robots so that maybe 10% of seat production that day is this new version, and you test it out. Now, when I say test it out, those cars are sold.
Yeah.
It's attempting to be zero scrap. And this is why when 2 people order a Tesla at the exact same time on their phones, one might get a car that's a little bit faster, and one might get a car that has a little bit longer range. As long as they both meet the minimum advertised specification at the time they ordered, they can meet or exceed that specification, and they do. That's why Teslas are often faster than advertised. So when you don't have to pay approximately 60% of salary to people who are not directly working on the engineering, like most companies do, managers, project managers, program managers, when instead you're paying nearly 100% of salary for people who are directly contributing to the engineering, near 100% of their working hours. They're in the factory, they're with robots, and you have this short daily focus. How do I relentlessly improve how much the seat weighs, or how much electricity the seat draws, or how many seconds it takes to install a seat? That's why in 3 years, the Tesla Model 3 decreased in price 30%. And when the cost of manufacture in Tesla decreases 30%, the customer price decreases 30%, because Elon is not operating any of the companies to maximize savings or personal return. Elon is trying to make an energy and transportation infrastructure that scales to Mars and beyond. And that, I think, is a very interesting difference. If I buy a beautiful electric Mercedes-Benz, and I do work with Mercedes-Benz, it doesn't help us build a colony on Mars. And no matter how many I buy, they don't use that money to decrease the price of the Mercedes-Benz. This fundamental difference makes the company more enjoyable for me to spend my money on. So I currently own 6 Teslas. Because I like it. And when the Tesla stock goes up, I can. And luckily it goes up. And then when it goes down, we can reload, right?
Yeah. I love the way you describe that. So it's about continuous innovation. It's about the process that he built, and it's not some end goal per se. Like, it's just you're trying to improve everything for this bigger mission. So when you and I last spoke 2 years ago, you had posted up, I think it was the Fortune 50, a map of all the different companies, all the different industries they're in. And then you overlaid on top of that, that eventually you'll see that Neuralink will take over this portion of the pharmaceutical industry, or energy will take over this, the oil industry. And a lot of people were like shocked and said, that's crazy. Elon Musk companies could eventually take over the vast majority of the Fortune 50, Fortune 300 companies out there, or at least play in those markets. Because everybody just said, Tesla's a car company. And that's what it was 2 years ago. But now, today, we're talking about, almost going to do scale production of robots, all kinds of robots, not just humanoid, scale production of AI. And then, of course, you got energy and you got the autonomous cars. So it's no longer that crazy to realize that, yes, Tesla could eventually take over a lot of these different industries, like even, creating furniture. All of a sudden the bots can make these furniture at a much lower price. Could they just sell the bots to these furniture companies and make a transaction fee? Or maybe just decide, I'll just get into the furniture business. One of the things that you pointed out to me at the time, and I've been repeating quite often to people, is that people don't realize that Tesla is an organism that changes and grows, and every 2 years they then say we're in this brand new business that we weren't in before. Every 2 years, it's pretty well clockwork. And so people go, oh, here's an auto company. I'm going to map it out for 5 years, 30 years from now, 20 years from now. And I go, here's the auto business 2030. By 2030, there's going to be two massive new businesses that Tesla's going to go into you hadn't heard about. And that's what you were trying to tell people about the pace of innovation and the kind of businesses it's going to get into. Can you like revisit what you were saying back then and what you think is different now, that what we've learned has changed in the last 2 years?
Since we talked last, I try to teach what I think I learned about project management in Tesla, which is minimal project management, and yet it functions at a very large scale. And while I was teaching one of those in person, one of the attendees, one of the customers in the class was from one of the larger financial trading houses. And during a coffee break, I said, can you show me how you value Tesla stock? Because it's reliably wrong. And they said, I know, that's why I'm in this class. And they said, here, let me show you. And they showed me how they value, how the company, the large trading house, one of the big names, one of the influential ones, makes their valuation of Tesla. And they look at customer sentiment only. Only. I said, where's product roadmap? Or where's the track record of delivering on the product roadmap? Or where is your belief in the future roadmap and what that would do when it happens? And they said, we don't factor in any of that. And I said, well, that's good because it keeps making buying opportunities for me. And they said, me too. I can't go with any of our managed funds. I have to be an individual private secret investor.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm here. What's scary in the short term for a lot of investors is because Elon does not seem to be ever interested in an exit, only using all available cash to go full send on that next initiative. And yet it becomes publicly visible maybe every 2 years. It's daily. So the AI tools we're using for procurement in 2020, pieces of Warp, other pieces are known publicly or at least have been mentioned publicly, like Warp. That's using what was AutoBidder before, the AI stack that was AutoBidder. And people weren't even talking about or aware of how useful AutoBidder is in procurement. And they're still not. Finally, they're aware that you can ask Grok to help you find the best price on a KUKA robot. And you can right now. I just did it again today just to check. And that's publicly available to anyone with a Premium X account. Well, of course, when you're a Tesla employee, there's all these products that are maturing, daily. And those are each possible products. So it's a question of when are they monetized and to what extent. But they're already being used inside the company to get their advantage. So procurement departments have been entirely replaced, almost entirely replaced with, at that time, it was disparate AIs. There was a totally separate AI and execution base for AutoBidder. And now it's part of Grok. And now you have the single front end for it, Tesla One, for employees in Tesla, for example. But those are all products. So what's maybe scary for some investors is there's all these points where you could expect to just have a massive cash out event. And Musk skips those. He bootstraps again. When Optimus does make the company a $15 trillion company or more, and it will, many people will be saying, great, now I'll get my cash out. But that's going to be immediately funded into something even more fundamental and even more useful to civilization. So and that will make all the short-term investors panic. So when Optimus becomes the most sold product in history of products, the stock will for a time actually go down. Because people are like, no, he's investing again. It's not even a robot company anymore. It's well, he's going to make a Dyson sphere. He's going to try to wrap the sun in solar panels, and that's going to be the largest production product process in civilization. People will be like, no, just cash out, just buy a vacation home like a normal quadrillionaire. But he won't. And by then, Grok might be running the company.
Exactly.
Really, I mean, that was the idea of X, was to be something that can hold the portfolio of companies accountable, even if Elon is not able to, even if Elon's not mentally able to. That's what X was created to do. And if you look at what's being used to train Grok, that's still absolutely one of its purposes, is to be able to hold all the X family companies accountable towards, Elon has now said, 100 million year goal, scaling civilization out among the stars.
So, Joe, how do you answer? Like, obviously, you're very, very optimistic about the future, very, very optimistic about Tesla. You've explained why, and that's understandable. A lot of people are very pessimistic or very skeptical. Here's Elon just talking about things that never happened many, many years from now. How confident are you that FSD is going to turn into robotaxi next year, that robots will actually be a real thing that's going to provide, useful work that people are going to end up buying? How confident are you, and how do you have that confidence is what most people want to ask and understand.
There are risks, but none of them are from inside the company. And Elon is making a lot of headway into the biggest risks right now. And I think it was you and I that got to be straightforward about risk. And it was government level. Like, what if a heavily biased levy is put against all Musk company products or significant number? Like, what if Starlink gets just effectively banned, which could happen, right? A government level initiative. Or if someone tries to take out Elon, tries to, remove his capacity to operate the company. Those are not the normal company risks. When you look at NVIDIA, you don't think at that level. They're amazing and they're huge and they're relatively quick to innovate, but nothing on the level of the Musk companies. When you look at Apple, whatever happens to Cook will have very little impact on the total trajectory of Apple, because it's not charismatically led by someone with a 10,000 year vision. And honestly, the difference in the previous 3 versions of the phone or laptop products are showing that it's being led by Tim Cook. Sorry, Tim. But with the Musk companies, you have these risks. Now, interestingly, Elon is very conscious of those risks, and X is being made to be a backup for, well, actually a better version of Elon. And Elon's political involvement is directly attempting to combat the other risk, or mitigate or reduce or damper the other risk. Whether you like Elon's political moves or not, please understand the necessity when you're talking about existential risk to the Musk companies achieving their vision, which is as huge as it is. So whether you like either party system in US politics at all, I think Elon's actions make an enormous amount of sense given the top risks to companies like the Musk companies. So what gives me confidence? As bizarrely huge as those 2 risks are, Elon is in the process of dampening even those risks. And those are something that nations have not been able to dampen in my lifetime. That gives me profound levels of confidence that even risks that countries, nations, previously nation states had, Elon is actually taking steps to mitigate those risks in ways that ancient Athens and ancient Troy couldn't, in ways that present day Russia, China, and the US are not. Elon is being better at statecraft than the states. And when you can take on risks at that level with more success, it looks like, than any of the current players, I'm not at all worried about another COVID and supply chain disruption. I'm not at all worried about any 1, 2, or 10 key players leaving or whatever the Washington Post tries to poke fun at Elon for, whatever may or may not have even happened. The other risks are so easy to handle by comparison, especially when you don't have a 2-year plan to be disrupted. And essentially it's, how do we do the most awesome in the next 12 hours? And then there's a night shift too. So in the next 12 hours, they do it again with the same number of people, or it was in 2020. So my confidence level is absolutely 100%. It's not to say there's not risks. So I guess Elon is often too mathematically correct, saying things like, you need to unautomate 80% of your automation and you'll end up adding 80% of it back again, when investors want to hear him say 100% and 100% and 100%, which is how normal people would talk. But Elon's a little bit too precise. Okay, I will be a little bit too precise. I'll say there's maybe an 80% chance that the Musk companies will revolutionize society, remonetize what we think is labor, and remonetize what we think is money. Even the 20% risk looks like it's being addressed in a more responsible way than the risks have ever been addressed in the history of civilization. I can't see any better bet. So many times there's been, from an investor's perspective, a stock price surge, and it's been good. And I think I should sell, because knowing about the criticisms the companies receive, there's likely to be a dip coming. And then I think, what would I put my money in if I sold from the Musk companies? There's nothing that I have higher confidence. Like even the dip. Well, I'd just buy Tesla again and I'd be playing the dip. And what if I get the timing wrong? So, okay, I'll let it ride, because I don't want to put it in Apple. I don't want to put it in NVIDIA. Yes, they have surges, but not like what the Musk companies are attempting to do in terms of surge, become a $15 trillion business and more, because there's no money objective.
Yeah, I am the same way. I mean, obviously, when you look at the company as a car company, then there's risks to that auto business. And if they did not get into the bot industry, if they did not get into the AI, I was getting a little worried last year, seeing all these hyperscalers spending tens of billions of dollars building data centers, and OpenAI's, a ChatGPT moment. And where's Tesla? Thank goodness, though. You look now and where they are. They have the largest supercomputers in the world, both on xAI and Tesla's Cortex in Giga Texas. So again, that sense of that, how fast the deploy speed. In fact, I just did a show with Brian Wang, and he pointed out that the speed. This is right up your alley. The speed by which they deployed that data center, the largest in the supercomputer clusters in the world, of 100,000 H100s, which is what it is today, and they're about to do 200,000, right? They're about to do 100,000. By the time that the other hyperscalers, let's say Meta, OpenAI, by the time they even implement their data centers, that's why you're seeing fights, angry words from Sam Altman to Microsoft. By the time they even turn on their data center, Tesla would already been the next 200, because that's that much faster. It's it's exponential. So by the time that xAI has 100 million, or is that 1 million hours of training, these guys will still be at the 100,000s. And then, of course, it just escalates from there. So there's a race, and Tesla looks like that they're ahead in AI and they're ahead in bots. And if they weren't in those two, I'd be very worried, because not that worried, it's just that, you got a limited market. But now, and like you're saying, doesn't mean that they're not going to get into the whatever the biggest thing is. If well, they're in AI. So that's the killer thing, AGI and bots. Those are the two, I think. I think what you're saying is Dyson Sphere, some sort of energy.
Yeah, the Dyson Sphere is going to be the milestone for civilization. And Musk has already expressed interest in it, clearly many times. Then interstellar transport. Wow. Yeah. I also was worried. I had enough confidence, but I was worried when I saw ChatGPT have its ChatGPT moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the what gave me confidence is seeing that Elon was simply attempting to ensure that Elon would be able to not lose, how can I say it? Saying not
Mm-hmm.
lose control of the AI investment is too simple. That the AI investment would still be used towards making civilization a
Right.
good, truth
Good.
seeking, fact seeking, multi planet civilization. Because Elon had helped seed OpenAI. So if the goal was to be an investor in the AI winner, Elon could have been happy. But that wasn't the goal. The goal
Mm-hmm.
was to have a maximally truth seeking AI that loves humans, that wants to help humans scale out among the stars and bring humans along for the ride. And OpenAI was being trained to not do that, but instead to optimize the profit interests of its contributors, even if that meant not being truthful and not loving humanity as a whole. And so Elon said, now I've got to compete with what I incubated. And only Elon can out compete Elon. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
there's this time where Elon had to reduce risks to having the control taken away again. And that's when Elon ultimately got involved in politics. His his pay package being shot down in
Oh my
Delaware
God. Yep.
uh, was nothing about the pay package. And I think some people get this. I think a lot of people get this, but maybe not everybody has seen what that was about. It was attempting to remove Elon's ability to control the companies that Elon has built, or even for Elon to choose the goal of the companies that Elon had built. And Elon did say, I want to make a massive play in AI, but I can't until I can verify that control can't be pointed away
Mm-hmm.
from the goal that I have publicly set. And Elon said, I don't even need cash
No.
from it.
Yeah, it's not the money. Yep. Control.
I need to verify its purpose. Now, unfortunately, that took a few really tense months when ChatGPT was having its ChatGPT moment and
Mm-hmm.
Elon was sidelined legally. And I was scared. I think a lot of people were scared. But the reason was Elon had to reduce risk to losing control of the company. When Elon had the pay package ratified and could do Tesla AI, and could make the data center on Tesla owned grounds, which it is in Texas. Elon then went all in super fast, and unfortunately, it took a little over 100 days for it to turn on. And so that was where another stressful
Yeah.
nail
Well,
biting
this is
119 days.
Yeah, this is again, this is one of the things where when we had our conversation 2 years ago, and you were talking about speed of innovation, you're the director of Agile, which is the department. The philosophies that a company is run by. Speed is critical, and then it's like it's words. So most of us just hear those words, sounds great, but we don't actually physically see it. Here is an example of physically watching and seeing that they were able to launch the largest supercomputer in the world in, well, from receiving the NVIDIA chips to the actual turning it on. But if you add up the entire just buying the land, building the factory was 122 days versus 19 days to actually turn it on. 122 days. And when normally takes 2 to 3 years. So that's where it finally shows up. Like, boom, this is an example of speed. We know China speed. We know Giga Shanghai. We're now hearing that unboxed model, the Cybercabs possibly could be one car every 8 seconds. That's how they just continue to improve how fast they can make these cars. Now, once you add bots in it, could even be better. But the other part is what you were saying about how Elon, the risks involved, and boy, he is shaking hands with every world leader out there, probably setting up megapack factories or additional factories, or safe haven for the company if they needed to, or just reducing his own risk of, let's say, China. It's pretty impressive that China loves Tesla. He somehow found a win-win that no other American companies ever found. And
Elon is better at statecraft than the
yeah,
states.
yeah.
And it's not only Elon. I do think Elon is likely a genius, but I don't think it's only Elon. I think it's the way of operationalizing all the brilliant people that want to support those missions and then being mission focused. If Elon was profiting like a normal CEO and spending a lot of time in a gorgeous mansion or on a huge boat like Bezos
Mm.
or a normal
Hmm.
big company successful CEO, you wouldn't have the level of passion from all of the more than 150,000 employees.
Hmm.
When I was an employee in 2020, the stock price went up more than 9 times. That was the time in 2020. That's when I was lucky to be in the company. And many of the people I worked with were Teslaonaires. It made more than $1 million in stock, and many of them had made more than $1 million US in stock within the last month.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a ramp, right? And that's when I was in the company. And I asked, how come you still work here,
Hmm.
to many
Hmm.
people? And the usual answer I got is, I like the work and I'm inspired by the mission. And I don't think those things happen in most companies. When I worked in Amazon, I didn't hear anybody say that. When I worked for Bill Gates, I didn't hear anybody say that. So Elon maybe is a genius, but by being mission focused and then having a minimum barrier management style, which is what I'll call agile, or what agile should be. There's maybe bad ways to do anything, including agile, but I'll say maybe the good way to be agile is a minimum barrier, minimum step management style. Then you have this ability to move towards that mission at a speed that's unusual and has happened very few times in the history of civilization. Looking back at a time that I cannot have firsthand experience, it does look like this has happened before in human history. And there's this history/myth. It's long enough ago that it's really hard to know what's myth, of the Yellow Emperor. And the Yellow Emperor is personified as one person in some versions of history and in some myths as this Chinese emperor who had a transparent abdomen. You could see
Hmm.
their digestive tract.
Hmm.
True or not, I have no way to know. Anyway, this one person is credited as inventing traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, because you could
Hmm.
stimulate one area and see the changes in their abdomen, herbal medicine, transitioning the civilization from hunter-gathering to agrarian by showing how to plant and tend and do rotations and composting. And then process the food and store the food. And then also the rudimentary forms of agricultural government. How do you stockpile food in a way that people think is fair enough, that they don't raid the stockpiles?
Hmm.
How do you penalize and reward people who create the stockpiles and protect them from vermin and mold and these systems? So your basic levels of justice and
Started
fairness.
there. Hmm.
Um, Now, I can't know if that was one person, but if almost all of the myth is actually history,
Hmm.
if almost all of it is true, that's pretty much what Elon is doing right now. So this may have happened before, but it was long enough ago. I think that's supposed to have been around 4,000 years ago. Long enough ago that we really have no idea if any of it is fact. But Elon appears to be transitioning civilization to a multiplanetary direct connect to AI. Um, I can't say direct democracy. It's a concept that I don't think has been formally named yet, but the
Yeah.
government and monetary system are linked
Yeah.
in
That's
Starlink satellites.
that's what you've
And
been
of course, that's
predicting.
enormously
Yeah.
profitable in the
Is that
short term.
he'll get into monetary, he'll get into government or like forms of direct democracy. So one of the last episode we did a year ago, you deep dive on the way that Tesla's different, how they set up meetings, the software that they use, the departments of how it works. And so if people are interested, they can look at that. let's get back to the stock. What are you expecting for the stock? You one point said, thousands of dollars per share. Eventually, even like at some point, the robots will just take over, and company, like, what would economy even mean at that point if one company, Tesla, has so much value from the bots? What are you expecting for the stock in the next year, 2 years, 5 years, and then of course your long-term forecast?
Oh, awesome. Exciting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So to date this video, it's just before the 2024 US elections.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to have a short-term enormous impact on the stock. And likely either way, it's going to be super volatile for the rest of 2024, which makes it a great time to reload or play the volatility for those of you who do that. I have not previously, but guessing with as much confidence as I have how volatile it'll be, I don't know, maybe I'll play the volatility too. The problem is the climb in 2020 wasn't volatile. It was just up and then up again, then up again, and then up again. So if you miss the climb, it's sad, right? And I don't know when that's going to come. But depending on how the election goes, the climb might not happen until the next president's cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be a really painful first year, depending on how the election goes, or a really good first year. But looking 10 years out, I don't think it matters very much. Maybe the stock will be 20% as awesome one way, and then 100% as awesome from a stock value perspective the other way. But looking 10 years out, I don't think it actually matters very much which way the election goes. Looking 10 years out, I have zero doubt the stock will pass 1,000 US per share. Now that's given the current number of splits. It may split again, and so maybe it does a three-way split and it's $333 per share. But anyway, about that.
Mm-hmm.
When Optimus arrives on its stride and robotaxi is normal in most major city centers, there will be an enormous value in the company that I predict will be not immediately realized in the stock price, because Elon will already be talking about building the Dyson sphere or whatever the huge thing is that will really upset investors or scare them. However, there will be this tipping point, I am reasonably confident, where there's suddenly, how can I describe a tipping point that has never happened like this in history? Maybe I won't try to describe it, but there'll be a tipping point where it just wins. It's like when the chasm is crossed from the 20% of early adopters to the early majority, and it just happens. And when that happens, it won't be about the stock price, because the change will be so big. We're talking about attempting to shift from like hunter gathering and people saying, but no one has more than 4,000 shells.
Right.
What are you talking about? And then suddenly it's agrarian.
Right.
And no one cares how many shells you have. No one cares what a shell is. Suddenly there's silos and fiefdoms. And you're like,
Yeah.
And that's a castle? What are you talking about? I have shells.
Right.
Like, that will happen. And it won't be about what the stock number is, but it will be very good for people who have the stock. And Elon doesn't seem to be the type to persecute even the people that persecuted Elon. So I don't think it's going to be a revenge moment. Luckily, he seems to be a little more mentally stable than that, as emotionally mature than that, as crazy as that is, given what that person goes through. So I don't think it'll be a bad day for anyone, but I think people who are bought in will be taken care of in a way that's difficult to understand now. It'd be like in agrarian terms being gifted a kingdom with a castle and vassals, whereas the hunter-gatherers are over in the forest of Nottingham and being persecuted as witches or whatever. Like really not good, but from a
Mm.
hunter-gatherer perspective, not that bad, versus
Mhm.
this radically superior level of lifestyle. Um, so when that happens, calling it Tesla hitting 10,000 per share, which is then more than the total money supply, is conservative because it's that different of a shift.
Yeah.
And I think everybody's going to be invited, but the folks who are already bought in, I think will have a much better experience transitioning into that new party. I don't mean to be so far out there. I mean, let's just think of the engineering. You have a direct connection to Grok in your brain.
Mm.
And imagine what Grok might be able to do 10 years from now. And that's an engineering question, right? Not a fantastical question. And you're trading Doge in real time, instantaneously, hopefully untaxed, because that's actually the advantage of Doge, is that
Right.
its transaction cost is the lowest of the durable, relatively safe, or maybe safe cryptographic currencies. So you're trading Doge at the speed of thought, assisted by 10 years future version of Grok, with unlimited free energy and unlimited free transportation effectively. Your level of liberty, communication ability, communicatability, and your ability to allocate labor through your army or world's pool of robotaxis with Optimus inside is different than has ever happened. You're truly the idea of a king or a queen, where you have this army of production that you get to choose, and you own what the money supply means. But everyone is like that. And it gets really cool. So saying Tesla to $10,000 a share, yes, yes, and even better, and even knowing that that's more than the total money supply. So from an engineering projection, even what is easy to talk about now, like Optimus, Neuralink, Doge, Starlink, Grok, it's the most compelling investment story ever. And there's not any other company even saying they want to do that.
I like the way that you said that there's this moment when it just happens because things do build upon each other. Like, if you've got the race in energy, well, then all the data centers for AI needs that energy. And then you need the bots. Well, the bots can help you create those data centers that can help you create those energy packs, can help you create those factories, can help you create anything. Then it becomes this thing where it just happens because everything is helping each other. It's the singularity. If you read the book Singularity is Near, it was about the whole universe, the whole society where all these things are all exponentially growing, but it's the crossover. If computer systems is growing exponentially, then of course pharmaceutical and biotech will grow exponentially, and then the two together will just spawn incredibly new industries. Well, this is one company that's doing all of this.
We're
So,
not even yet talking about the Musk company's developments in mRNA when you talk
you're
about biotech.
right.
So when you talk about biological compute and biological maximization, and I mean, it's kind of trivial to say agelessness when you're talking about what these companies are trying to accomplish, but
Mhm.
also reducing the impact of age. Um, we're not even talking about that yet. So, I mean, if you want to get really fantastical, you could say you're an ageless super being living among the stars, and you occupy more than one body at a time. Like, you could actually
Sure.
make some case for
Yeah.
as interesting a future as you want to talk about. But just the straight engineering conversation is powerful
It's
all
there.
by itself.
Yeah, Elon does not want longevity, so it's not his mission for that. But wow, okay, well, good. I'm glad that we had a chance to catch up. It's fun because I tell you, folks who haven't seen the first show we did 2 years ago, and the second show we did a year ago, at that time, people were just shaking their heads. I don't know if all that many people are still shaking their heads at this point. And as we do another year and another year later, it's pretty obvious that it's all happening as you said, or as Elon is hoping to happen, and it's starting to happen. So appreciate this,
Herbert, I
Joe.
want to
Yeah.
congratulate you on your early
Mm.
vision on many investment plays and the
That's
Musk
not true,
companies
first of all.
too.
That's not true.
Um,
Yeah.
and
You're the
for
guy.
those of you that are getting brighter with Herbert, congratulations if you've made some of the moves that Herbert has recommended or
No,
made.
no, that's
And
not
I've
true.
got a lot of confidence in this
I
one.
don't recommend stocks. I don't give stock price targets. I just focus on the product and the technology, and that's why I enjoy talking to you, because this is what excites me. It's everything you're talking about: how to build the right product, how to build the right company, which markets, and how they're going to win. Those kind of things. Yeah.
Now, that actually is why I think I'm alive,
Yeah.
is to try to share what I think I've learned
Yeah.
about how to build a company.
Yeah.
I've not had the success Elon has, or Bill, or Gates, or Jeff Bezos. I've had some successes and actually do pretty well, but not at that level. But I think I've
Yeah.
understood at least a lot of the recipe and executed it enough to do pretty well for myself. And I do share what I've learned. And for
Yeah.
those of you who are interested in improving the company you're in from within your sphere of influence,
Exactly.
or
Yeah.
if you own a company or want to start one, improving the whole company, because as the owner, there's more that the owner can do that when you're in a company, you might not have an influence over. And that's at abi-agile.com,
Yeah.
abi-agile.com, Agile
Yeah.
Business Institute-agile.com. And I'm on X and Instagram and Facebook and all
Yeah.
that.
I'll put it all
And I
in the
shared
description. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'll put it
those.
on the description, because you are consulting with some of the largest companies, big name ones. That's why you're in Japan. You go there and you help these companies, and it's like they're all very curious. How does Tesla do this? You're helping build that for them, the agile division, and you know how to create companies the right way. If you do the right structure of the company, then any product, whatever they're doing, can get
If
better.
we set the ground rules right, the company
Yeah.
scales itself. It's like
Yeah.
getting one really, yeah, it's like writing a recursive algorithm. For those of you who have any code background, if you ever went to study code at university, that's what I did. One of the code examples that I hope everyone was asked to do, I was asked to do it, is write a recursive algorithm, a little piece of code, usually little, that calls itself, that calls
Yeah.
itself, that calls itself forever. And if it runs out of memory, it starts to cull the oldest processes or have some way to free up memory again, so it can live indefinitely within whatever size compute it has.
Yeah.
And if you get that code right, it scales
Yeah.
to whatever size it has, which would be your definition of healthy,
Mhm.
and maintains itself. If you get it wrong, it crashes. You get a blue screen, you run out of memory, it dies, right? Well, that's the idea. If you get the rules right, the company scales itself and you can focus on the engineering. And what almost every company in the world hasn't done
Yeah.
is even bother trying to think what those rules are, much less make them visible, much less abide by them, execute according to those rules. So the company becomes difficult to manage. So you have
Yeah.
managers and managers, managers and managers of managers, and you end up spending 60% or more of total company spend on management to try to just hold the company together. And even
Yeah.
then there's infighting and information hiding and people that work alone and they branch off and part of the company dies or the income doesn't go to those investors. It only goes to those and they get angry. They didn't get the rules right or even pay attention to what the rules were, much less enforce them. And most companies we go into, we see the current flavor of rules written by some consulting firm,
It's pretty
and it
straightforward,
has
pretty
nothing to
obvious.
do with how
Yeah.
cash is actually allocated in the company.
Yeah.
Well, our mission is to be the healthiest pharmaceutical company for this type of patient and cure this type of therapy. But why are we throwing all these parties for this person you went to high school
Right.
with
Incentives are not
20%
right.
of our total income?
Hmm.
And so, of course, the company is fighting itself, and you need all these layers of management just to keep people from quitting. But if you get the rules right, the engineering rules, or as what's now getting popular in the Musk companies to say, the algorithm, If you get that right and actually allocate your money according to that algorithm, you know really quickly if the company's going to grow or die off. So then you adjust the algorithm, you adjust the rules, and then the company really manages itself. So you can focus on the mission of the company, the engineering that make what the company wants
Yeah.
to achieve in the world.
Yeah. That's there's a successful company. It's called Tesla, Elon Musk companies. Let's take a look and study what they do. Try to at least learn some of it instead of just doing everything the way that everybody else is doing. And it's just pretty obvious it's not working. Anyways, thank you so much. Joe, I'll put all of that information in the description as well, but would love to catch up with you again 1 year from now. And boy, it is changing fast. We're going to see bots already around us. We're going to have autonomous cars around us, in certain cities, and it's no longer going to be future. It's here.
My honor and pleasure, Herbert. See you in a year.
See you in a year. See you, Joe. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.